And hello, BookTube. Welcome to my channel. This is the Speculative Bookshelf. And today I'm going to review two books from the early days of science fiction, going back to the 1920s. One is from 1924 and the other one's from 1931. And these are the first two books that got me started into vintage paperback collecting. The first one, and I don't have the paperbacks anymore since we moved overseas, and I got rid of all my text uh, print books. So everything's on ebook now, and these are both available on from the Gutenberg project or Project Gutenberg or standard ebooks. First one is called Into Plutonian Depths by Stanton Koblenz, while the second one is called An Earthman on Venus. Let's see if I can get that centered for you. It's An Earthman on Venus by Ralph Milne Farley. And these are both, these two editions are from 1950, published by Avon Paperbacks, and they're quite collectible right now. First up, let me take the earlier one from 1924. We have An Earthman on Venus, which was originally called The Radio Man, and it was first serialized in Argosy magazine, or more correctly, Argosy All-Star Weekly. It was serialized over, I think, 3 or 4 issues in 1924. And this book takes after Edgar Rice Burroughs' John Carter of Mars. In fact, Milne or Farley and Burroughs were good friends. So it seems that Farley was influenced heavily by Burroughs' John Carter. And the title was changed to An Earthman on Venus when Avon published it. And the story concerns a man named Miles Cabot, who is a radio engineer. You know, in 1924, radio is is the cutting edge of technology at the time. He's running experiments on transmitting matter through radio waves when something goes terribly wrong, and he ends up being transmitted to the planet Venus. He finds that there are two races of people there. The dominant race is a race of ants who are like 6, 7 feet tall. They are not only the dominant race, but they are the dominating race over the other race they call the Cupians, who are very humanoid in their features, except for that they have radio antennas and 6 fingers. And of course, he meets a Cupian princess who he falls in love with. And the Cupian, as it's the name Cupian is similar to the word Cupid, so like Cupid dolls. So of course, this young princess he sees is cute as a Cupid doll. Oh, and they have little wings too, little Tinkerbell wings. And aside from the radio technology that got him there, there's not much science to be explored, except for maybe the gyroscopic cars that are used on the planet Venus. It's basically just an adventure story on another planet. Miles Cabot is captured by the Formians, the ant creatures, and like every other book I've seen where ants are a dominant creature, you know, the venom in ant that makes it sting is formic acid. So the ant creatures are always named some variation of formic, in this case formian. Now, not only is Miles Cabot on a strange planet and doesn't know the language, cannot learn to communicate, the people don't communicate verbally at all. Anyways, they have silent communication through their through their antennas, which of course just plays right into his expertise. He rigs up a kind of a radio transmitter that he wears on his belt and has antennas. And in fact, he he uses the antennas as not just to transmit, but to make him blend in better with the natives, with the native Cupians, because they think he's freaky looking. So the Formians have captured the little Cupid doll princess, and it's up to our hero Miles Cabot to rescue her. And things go back and forth. He makes a BFF of one of the ant guys who treats him decently, and he escapes to the Cupians. And then I don't want to go too much into the plots. Like I said, it's just basic adventure story. So anything more I explain will, by necessity, be spoilers. So, but anyways, it's like I said, it's not sophisticated writing. It's not a lot of science to chew on. It's just basically a fun adventure romp. And so, taking into account the time period, 1924, it's a fun story. If you like the way you might watch an old 50s science fiction movie, there's not going to be any rigorous science involved. It reminds me, I was watching I had a videotape of an old uh, movie serial. Back in the 50s, they had serials for the Saturday matinees, and shoot, I don't even remember the name of it. It was a space, uh, a space adventure serial, and the level of science they used was that the a man and his, of course, his love interest are are in a rocket in space, and the seat in which they are seated, they're just regular office chairs even with the rolling wheels. And the woman's looking out the porthole of the rocket, and she goes, "Wow, it doesn't even look like we're moving." And the guy explains to her, "I know it doesn't look like we're moving, but in fact, we're moving at a lot of miles an hour. A lot of miles an hour." So, anyways, it's not that bad in this story, but like I said, there's not a lot of science, and it's just an adventure story. It's called Sword and Planet, the genre, like John Carter or Sword and Sandal. And the author himself, Ralph Milne Farley, that's a pseudonym. His real name was Roger Sherman Hoar, Hoar. And he had a law degree, and he actually had a mathematics and engineering background. So that's where all the radio technology comes in the story. And then in 1925, he wrote a sequel to Radio Man called Radio Beasts. And then in the next year, 1926, he wrote a third entry into the series called The Radio Planet. I haven't read either of them, and truth be told, I don't plan on it either. So going on into the next book, like I said, was Stanton Coblentz, Into Plutonian Depths. Coblentz is a different breed of author altogether. He had no engineering background. He had a master's degree in literature, and he had a humanities background. And he wrote in a more satirical style, just making social commentary in his books. And this story, Into Plutonian Depths, it was first published in 1931 in Wonder Stories Quarterly. And it's interesting because the planet Pluto had only been discovered the year before in 1930. So he wasted no time in, utilizing this new planet in a story. And in this story, Dan and Andrew are two buddies who they want to go to Pluto. So they build themselves a 70-foot diameter spherical car, spaceship, and their means of propulsion to make the long journey is rather unique. They they develop a anti-gravity, or not really anti-gravity, a gravity insulator. After some experimentation, they find a material which, when wrapped around an object, will shield it from gravitational effects. So they build these panels that, uh, how many dozens of these panels completely uh, envelop this 70-foot spaceship. And what they do is that they will open up one panel, say exposed to the moon or the sun, which then the gravity from the sun or the moon will leak in, so to speak, and draw their spaceship up into space. Once they're there, then they you know close up that window, open up a panel on a window that is exposed to Jupiter, and then Jupiter just draws them out towards the outer planets. And then, of course, as they get past Jupiter and towards Pluto, then they have to then it's just a matter of opening up uh, one panel or another to uh, direct a gravitational force in, so they can be tugged. Anyways, and they have some mishaps along the way. Without getting too much into that, they eventually make it to the planet Pluto, which isn't nearly as cold as we know it to be now. In fact, one character even comments, "Wow, this would be downright mild winter in Antarctica." However, there is no one on the top surface. They accidentally they find a crevice where they go down, and they find stairs, and it leads them down into a civilization below the surface of the planet. And there, they run into humanoid creatures, and these creatures they believe that there is no life beyond Pluto. Their planet is the only one with life, and they don't believe the explanation that these guys have come from another planet. They believe they've come from the lower depths of Pluto. And as it turns out, the lower depths of Pluto has a lower caste of people. In fact, they are all considered very poor. They're all very poor people. And when he goes down and gets a tour of them, he sees that there's all kinds of jewels and money and just riches. And he wonders, how can they be poor if they have all this money and jewels? And the woman that they meet there explains to them that oh, having money and riches, that is considered um, that makes somebody very poor, because they should aspire towards greatness, to their own mental growth, and whatnot. So this materialistic wealth is looked down upon, and that makes them poor. So of course there's your satirical commentary on material society on Earth. And it also turns out that they have more than two genders on Pluto, where the women can strive to their ultimate heights of becoming a neuter, where they become neutralized in gender chemically. And in fact, the big boss of the society is called the head neuter. And our heroes get they get examined and whatnot, and they're treated all right, not like the guy on Venus. uh, they're given a they're given their own quarters, and they're fed. Except the food that they're given is just really some crappy stuff. It's like tasteless, bland porridge type stuff. They get in trouble after they find a couple of creatures roaming around, like Plutonian cat or something, and they capture it and grill it in their room and eat it so they have some meat, and oh, they love it, so they kill another creature they find and grill it and eat it. Ah, well, it turns out that someone finds out they're eating the animals and they're turned in, and oh, that is just disgusting, immoral behavior. So now that sets up the conflict with the Earthmen, and so now they have to get away from the Plutonians. And guess what? Of course they do, but how they do it is up to you to find out by reading. So again, this was a 1931 story, still quite early in science fiction. Science fiction, came about with in 1926 when Hugo Gernsback took over the editorship of Amazing Stories magazine. So this is only 5 years later, and science fiction hasn't gotten real sophisticated yet. But of the two books, I would say that Beneath Plutonian Depths is a little more deeper, so to speak, than Earthman on Venus. Koblenz had a lot more to say. He had more of a message to put in his story, regarding the flaws and the excesses of modern society at the time. Like I said, it's fun reading both books, just as a historical interest in reading some very early science fiction. And like I said, they are both available on Project Gutenberg, so you can download them in EPUB format. And if any of you have read either of these stories, tell me what you think. Leave a comment below. And if you have suggestions for some other early stories from the 20s or early 30s, let me know about that also. I'd be interested in hearing what you've read and what you'd recommend. So, thanks again for joining me. And until next time, my name's Ted. This is the Speculative Bookshelf, and I'll see you next time.